Hey guys, it's Kelly with Good Dogs Minnesota. I am a dog trainer in Minnesota, serving the Twin Cities and surrounding areas. And this is a video responding to the Q&A post that I put up about a week ago. I have 3 questions, and I'm going to try to go through them in a timely manner. Sometimes dog training questions can have kind of long responses, so just bear with me. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. My first question is from Sarah, and Sarah writes, last year we adopted a 12-week-old Labrador mix. We have worked on his training a lot and he's done really well. He is now 9 months old and has recently stopped coming when we call him. When he was a puppy, he came every time we called him. However, now he ignores us when it's time to come inside and sometimes even runs away in the other direction. Recently, my husband took him to a friend's farm where he helps out sometimes. And when it was time to leave, Jake would not come to him. My husband had to chase him around and only caught him because he got spooked by a loud noise and stopped. He is very active, and we have family and friends that live close with big properties and lots of opportunities to run free. How can we retrain him to come when he is called so that he can be loose and run and burn off energy? All right, Sarah. So this is a very common issue. Pretty much to sum it all up, we say too much freedom too soon. We tend to get a false sense of security with our puppies. This is because about up to from the time they're 4 weeks old to sometimes 12 to 16 weeks old, puppies have what we call a homing mechanism or homing instinct. All canines have this instinct, right? It protects pups in the wild in the deep dark woods from getting lost and becoming prey and running too far from mom and getting injured. And that instinct is to basically stay home and stay with the pack or the family, right? So when they're puppies, they really easily come when they're called because their homing instinct is very activated. They want to be close to us. They want to not to get too far from us. They're also much more socially motivated when they're puppies. So it's really easy for them to get distracted, let's say from a smell or something outside, and come running into us as soon as, puppy, we make loud noises or high-pitched noises, and then we move around and the puppy comes running and they're like, yay, we love you, we love to be with you. When the puppies grow and mature, usually at about 4 months, let's say 4 to 8 months is when puppies start to mature, we start to see a change happen, right? And that change is what we call, in the hunting dog world, we call it boldness, right? They start to become bold. Naturally, the dog is becoming more environmentally oriented versus socially oriented. It doesn't mean that they're not social. It just means that now they have a newfound confidence and they want to go explore their environment. And just like human teenagers, us parents, family tend to not be as exciting. So we have to really up our game to keep us exciting, right? Their brains are growing, so it takes more to keep them stimulated, right? And as a teenage puppy, the biggest stimulation is novelty. They want to go explore stuff they haven't explored. They want to go smell stuff they haven't smelled. And pretty much mom and dad, the pack, the home are old news, right? So that is probably what's happened with your puppy. We tend, again, false sense of security. We think, oh, the dog's doing great. He's 4 months old and he comes when he's called and he sits and he just wants my attention. And then we start to see a change. So, and during that change, what happens is we tend to give them more freedom that they actually should be allowed, right? And then they start to build up bad habits. So number one, let's decrease the amount of freedom the dog has outside. The best way to do that, the easiest way to do that is to just have the dog on a leash, a long leash. So anywhere from 15 to 30 foot long lead. You can put it on a flat buckle collar. You could put it on a harness. That way the dog can't get away from you, right? If you're going to have the dog in an off leash situation, having them drag around the long leash is highly recommended. First of all, for safety. It will get caught up on things. You just kind of have to deal with it. But that way, if you do call your dog and he does not come to you, or he takes off in the other direction, all you got to do is step on the long line, right? I also advise whenever you're using long leashes for those kind of purposes to tie knots in them, especially if you have a dog that's a runner, because they're easy to grab and you can grab the knot without skinning your hands. Or if it's on the ground, you can just step on it. And it's a lot easier to catch with your feet if there's a knot. The second thing is training, right? So repetition, repetition, repetition. I would have the puppy first, I would start in the house, and I would take the puppy's daily food. So instead of him just getting his food for no reason, we'd divide the food in half, and I would probably work him with half of his food. I assume he's on kibble. And we call the name, puppy turns, you say yes. Yes means I get food. So yes, good job, he gets food. So the dog's, oh, Jake. So Jake, yes, food. Jake, yes, food. Jake, come, yes, food. Jake, come, yes, food. And slowly we increase the distance and we increase the distraction around the dog until we're at a point where he can be outside. I could say, Jake, come, good boy, food, right? Make sure that you are keeping it interesting. The thing about teenage dogs is that when we're training, they need to have a lot invested in it. So maybe food isn't the greatest thing you can give them at the time, right? Maybe recalling him and then sending him out to go play is the best thing you can do so that the recall actually is rewarding, right? So keep that in mind. It doesn't always have to be food that he's being reinforced with. But I would practice, honestly, 100 times a day. Now that sounds kind of crazy, but if you think about it, to recall him 10 times, you could do that in 2 minutes and then take a break, right? Take a break for an hour, right? Recall him 10 times, take a break for an hour, recall him 10 times, take a break for an hour, until he is at a point where he hears his name and he's already turning. Before he even knows what he's doing, he's already turning. Because what we're doing with all those repetitions is we're creating muscle memory, right? It's just like when you're driving and you can completely be thinking about something else, and if you see a stop sign come up, you're automatically, your foot comes off the gas and you start hitting the brake, right? We're not thinking about those things. It's our muscle memory, right? And we want to do the same thing for our dogs. That's where I would start with until he can recall from a pretty good distance. And 9 months old is, and I'll say that it's really way too young for the dog to be completely off leash without a long lead on. I never advise doing it before 1.5 years, just in case. And some breeds may be a little bit longer. And in the long run, free running of the dog, which is great. Dogs need that, right? It's really important because they're really environmentally oriented. We do have to fulfill them biologically and give them some free time to go out and do those things and sniff and dig and all that. We have much happy, healthier, and calmer dogs in the house when we give our dogs opportunities to do those things. So if you're looking to do that long term, if you want a dog that's really reliable in a lot of situations, if you're somebody that, you go to a lot of places with your dog, I really suggest do e-collar training, which is modern e-collar work, which if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a very intuitive tool, and we can do a lot of things with e-collars that we couldn't do in the past. And keeping in mind as well, if off-leash, having a mostly off-leash dog is your ultimate goal, you also need to start bringing in some other behaviors that are really essential to off-leash work. And with the e-collar, your dog can learn those things really, really quickly in a positive way. It helps create great default recalls, and distance sits, distance downs, distance recall into a heel, walking and heel off leash. Those are all really essential if you're going to have a dog that's off leash a lot of the time in different environments, to keep them safe. It's not just about the recall. We also have to be able to stop our dogs at a distance, or what we call anchor, to stop and sit until we walk up and can handle the situation. So keeping that in mind. So if you have any other questions regarding Mr. Jake, you can definitely let me know. All right, next question. This next question is from Yvonne, and Yvonne writes, my 1-year-old male just loves our 5-year-old female. They have been fixed. He is always licking her face and other places. She hates it and proceeds to nip and bite him. That doesn't matter. He just keeps on doing it all the time. I don't know how to make them quit this behavior. Can you help me and them? All right, cool. So, Yvonne, this is also pretty common. Just the dogs in the house kind of annoying each other. Again, too much freedom too soon. A lot of times when we bring a younger dog, I'm assuming that the older dog was in the house first, the 5-year-old female, and the 1-year-old male came into the house second. And what often happens is that that younger dog puts a lot of pressure on that older dog, right? Most of the time when people get a second dog, they might do a meet on a neutral territory, maybe go for a walk. And if everything goes right, they just bring him right into the house, and the new dog is kind of assimilated into the family pretty quickly. A younger dog is going to have more energy than an older dog. So a younger dog, especially if it's a year and under, is going to put a lot of pressure on that older dog, right? So number one, we need to advocate for this older dog. If she's nipping and biting, she's uncomfortable. She's trying to get space. That's what is happening there. So we need to make sure that we're advocating for her, meaning that the minute that she starts biting or you can see that she's uncomfortable, we need to move in, right? If your younger dog is not trained enough to recall away from her, which is number one for training, I'd start teaching your dog to recall away. Then we need to move in and separate the dogs, right? A good rule of thumb when we have two dogs that are experiencing some sort of conflict is that they shouldn't feel like they have to handle it themselves. They should know that the humans in the situation, the humans in the household, are the leaders, and they're going to come in and help them out when they're not feeling very comfortable with the pressure that the other dog is putting on them. So number one, we got to advocate for her. The minute that she's feeling uncomfortable, which a lot of times there'll be some, usually there's signs that come before the actual biting and snapping. So you might see her get stiff. She might turn her head away. She might be trying to do this move away from him. That's when you have to come in and address that other dog. The second thing I would really, really suggest is actually, for at least half the time, is keeping them separated. That will take a lot of stress off the older dog, is not always having to be with the younger dog. I don't know if you guys are doing that now, but that's pretty important. Whenever I bring another dog into my household, they're separated from my other two dogs that now free roam together. They're probably separated for a good 3 months, right? And what separation means is that they can see each other. They can be physical through a gate. We have baby gates set up all over our house. They can see each other, they can smell each other, they can be in contact with each other through the gates, but there is some separation there so they can't crowd each other. That decreases a lot of conflict. And instead of just having them together all the time, we have social sessions and we play, and I allow them to be interactive. But as soon as one dog shows any sign of being worried or concerned or not really enjoying the pressure of play, right? Because it's all pressure, right? I mean, play is pressure as well. We separate. So I might move in and push the other dog off, or push, not physically push, but I move in and I separate. I will usually put my body in between them and kind of let the other one know that I don't want them to be around. And instead of having them together all the time to play, we have social sessions. So maybe an hour a day, the dogs can be together, right? And outside of that, they'll go for walks together, maybe be outside together doing some sniffing and things like that, but not in full, what we call free roaming together, or in full contact with one another for quite a while. I have my 9-ish-year-old Pekingese, and then we have a year and a half old Spinone, which is a large field dog. We got the Spinone when he was 9 weeks old. They've only been free roaming together probably for the last 3 months. So before that, they were very, very much separated and lived very, very separate lives because they weren't ready to be together. There was going to be conflict if they were together. So I highly suggest putting some management into play there and keeping them separated to decrease the stress and potential conflict of the situation. The other thing we'd want to do is work on training, right? So with your young dog, a year-old, he should definitely be able to be called away from the other dog, right? You should definitely be able to have him in a sit, down, a stay, on place training, which means going to an object and laying down on it, which in this case, most of the time we use a pet cot, and he can go be on place while she's free roaming, and then she can go on place while he's free roaming the house. And having them be working together meaning that they're actually one's in a downstay over here while one's in a downstay over there, and you're watching your show on TV or whatever you choose to do when you're not dealing with your dogs, and creating some more boundaries around the house, which will help you be able to influence their behavior because you're setting up boundaries. Therefore, you become more of an influence on the dog's behaviors, if that makes sense. So I would really, really focus on working each dog individually. And your goal is pretty much for every pet dogs, right? Every pet dog needs to know 6 things. Needs to come when they're called, heel, sit, down, place, and out. Dropping something they're not supposed to have, right? So I would work with both of those dogs on those commands and really, really work on being able to influence them even at a distance. So if one is, if you can see your female getting a little worried, you can, hey, knock it off, and tell your male to back off, right? Maybe send them to place, maybe just recall them over here. But what you're going to find the more that happens is that your female is going to become a lot more relaxed. She's going to maybe come over by you when she's feeling a little crowded by your boy, and then okay, well, she can come over here. She can come over here and I'll shoo him off, right? You can also recall her that in that scenario, right? You can also teach her whenever she feels nervous to come by you, and then you won't let the male be around, right? So she'll, instead of handling it herself and nipping and biting, she'll come to you instead. So I would really, really work on that. Right now, it doesn't sound like you've got a big issue, but down the road, as your male gets older, he could not take kindly to the nipping and biting, right? He could not take kindly to that, and you could have a more aggressive conflict take place down the road. So those are the things that I would do. All right, Yvonne? All right. Question number 3. I adopted a Shih Tzu mix from a rescue and was told that he was potty trained. However, he doesn't tell me when he has to go, and has had many accidents in the house. When outside, he goes, but spends a lot of time sniffing, and sometimes will go inside after he comes in. How do I train this out of him? Okay, so first of all, number 1, and that was Mary, by the way, Mary. First of all, whenever I bring a new dog into my house to foster or board and train, or even for client boarding, I assume that dog is not potty trained. I don't care how old the dog is. I don't care how well I know the dog. I don't care what kind of dog it is. All dogs are treated as if they weren't potty trained. That means that they go outside on a schedule about every 2.5 to 3 hours. They go outside 30 minutes after they eat, and after they have a rest in the kennels. So that pretty much comes out to about 5 to 7 times a day, depending on the day and depending on the dogs and where they're at in training and whatnot. So if I have fosters, especially little ones, they definitely go out probably about every 2 hours. Most dogs in rescue that are small, these companion breeds, are the product of pet stores, puppy mills, and overbreeding. What we call maybe backyard breeders or commercial breeding. And when dogs aren't raised in a situation where their mom can actually leave them and come back, she doesn't teach them how to potty train. So mom will actually teach puppies how to potty train and how to go away from the den, quote unquote, or the bed or the whelping area. When they're in situations where mom is kept with puppies 24/7, they pretty much learn to lay in their poop and pee where they den. So not a lot of them are potty trained, and when we have dogs that are older, it doesn't say how old the dog is. I assume he's an adult. They don't tend to potty train very well in the long run. So, but there's some things that you can do. Number 1, also something that I always tell all my clients: don't assume that the dog's going to tell you that they have to go to the bathroom. Just put them on a schedule. For my own dogs, I think that over the years they've figured out if there's an emergency, they know to come get me and I'll take them outside. I've definitely had situations where I've woken up in the middle of the night to a dog saying, "Hey, I gotta go. I don't know what's going on, but I gotta get out there right now." But that's not the norm. So my dogs pretty much go out on a schedule. They don't come to me and tell me when they have to go out. Same thing for any dog I bring in here in training. We just take them out. So I would, for number one, get him on a schedule. And for a little dog like that, pretty much the rule of thumb is every 2 hours plus 15 minutes after he eats, maybe even sooner, and after he wakes up. So monitoring him is really important. If he's over there hanging out sleeping for a few hours, make sure that you're seeing him, because he's very likely getting up and going to pee in the corner and then coming and saying, oh, hey, how's it going? And trying to find you to just hang out. So make sure that you're monitoring right away. The other thing too is you want to make sure that you're allowing him to have a lot of time sniffing outside. We mentioned it earlier in the video about dogs, older dogs, particularly teenagers, but older dogs as well. They're very environmentally oriented. When they're out there sniffing and searching and just investigating the world, what's happening in the brain is that their seeking system is turned on, which is kind of like the equivalent of Christmas morning to a kid. Or if you've ever had a young kid and you take them to a new park, right? And they're just like, whoa, a new park. And they, dive out of the car and they want to go see everything and look at everything. That is the seeking system in the brain being activated. In order for most mammals, the seeking system on the brain has to be activated on a regular basis to create good mental health. So it is really important. And I advise twice a day. You can get away with once a day, but I would advise twice a day unless the weather is bad, is actually taking him out on a longer leash. You could put a harness on him, put a little coat on him, and just letting him putz around and sniff and follow him around. You could practice recall, right? You could practice coming in your call. I don't know his name, but you could, call his name, come here and give him a treat, good job, and let him go out and sniff again. Very likely what you're going to see is that he's going to do a lot of peeing at those times, and then he's going to be very empty when he comes back inside. If he learns that, if he wants to be out sniffing, which if you're saying that he's doing a lot of sniffing outside, it sounds like he likes to be outside. If he learns that the minute that he pees, he comes back inside, he's going to hold it. And he's going to hold it until he's done sniffing. And then he's going to come back inside. And then he's going to go again probably, because dogs don't usually empty their bladders in one go. So it's really important that if he likes to be outside, he goes potty, let him be out there for longer. Let him be out there for 10, 15 more minutes. And those little exhibitions of sniffing and stuff, which I recommend for all dogs, not just this dog in particular, but for all dogs, should happen outside of maybe a controlled walk or regular walks, right? Because he should also be walking on a regular basis as well to kind of satisfy that migratory nature of dogs. Those are the things that I suggest. The other thing is that if he is a rescue and you're really, really having trouble, I do suggest putting a belly band on him when he comes inside. This way, theoretically, a belly band should push the genitals up, which is just a strap that goes around their midsection, and they shouldn't go to the bathroom. Every dog I've put one on has gone to the bathroom in the belly band. So what we do is we put a little maxi pad or poise pad in there. And yes, the dog is still technically peeing in the house, which is not a behavior that we want to encourage. But this way the dog is not creating scent marks all over the wall for future peeing, right? You're saving your carpet, you're saving your walls. And when the dog goes to pee somewhere, it's not going to a special spot since he's already marked. So it does decrease the number of times that dogs actually will go in the house. So that's something I do recommend. I do not recommend actually correcting him if you catch him peeing. Correcting him when you see him peeing, and by correction I mean like, you no, and you might no and yell at him and punish him for peeing in the house. What that is going to do is it's going to deter him from peeing in front of you. The dog does not necessarily know that you are upset that he's going in the house. Most likely, he's going to learn that you're upset that he went in front of you. So instead of peeing in the middle of the living room or marking the couch, he's going to find little areas around your house to pee in. And you won't know until one day you smell some pee and realize, oh my gosh, he's been peeing in this corner for months and you didn't know, which is no fun. The other thing that it can deter him to do, it can also deter him from peeing outside in front of you. So it's really important that we don't punish a dog for peeing in the house. What you can do is you can interrupt them, right? So you can go, ah, you know, and make a noise, and if the dog stops, you go, outside, let's go outside, and bring the dog, pick the dog up, if it's a small dog, or have the dog on a leash and take the dog outside really quickly. I always advise you having a dog on a leash. If it's a new dog in your home, having him on a leash for a while, just dragging a leash around. The other thing too, one more thing, is that you can actually teach the dog what the word outside means. If he's food motivated, stand in your doorway and you take your little, got some kibble here or treats, whatever, and you throw one outside, say outside, good job. Dog runs outside, goes to eat the food, you say good job, and then take one and throw it inside, inside, outside, inside, outside, right? Practicing that will actually give a meaning to the word. So then if you do catch him, you can say, no, outside, outside, right? And run to the door, and you're actually putting a meaning to that word, right? So he's doing an action and he goes, oh, outside, right? And you're being very clear on what it is that you want him to do and what it is that you don't want him to do, right? But yeah, in the long run, if it becomes a problem, I highly suggest a belly band. So getting him on a schedule, making sure that you're watching him a lot. If doesn't sound like he's peeing on any sort of, like you didn't mention that he's peeing on furniture or peeing as he's sleeping or anything like that. If you start to notice that, I would take him to the vet and make sure that he's healthy, make sure he doesn't have a UTI, or anything like that. All right. Mary? All right, guys, that is it for the questions. I did get one question about service dogs, which I don't do service dogs. This was somebody wanted to know about their pet becoming a service dog. I don't do any service dog work, and I'm not a big fan of the average pet dog just being trained in to be a service dog. If you're looking for that information or service dog information and you're in the Minnesota area, you want to look up Can Do Canines, and it's Can Do, and then it's spelled canine, not the K and the 9. Can Do Canines in Minnesota, they do all the service dog work, and I defer all of the service dog questions to them. And then I did get a quick comment on one of my videos about wanting to train the dogs not to jump anymore. I actually forget the name, I'm sorry. But if you are the commenter of that comment and you are watching this video, please email me through the Facebook page, and I need a little more information. It was just a statement that said I need to retrain my dogs to not jump on me. I need a little more information from you on that, and feel free to email me through the Facebook page, and I will definitely email you back, or I'll make another whole video. All right? If you like what you've heard here, please like this video, please share it. Again, my name is Kelly Zink. I am a dog trainer in Minnesota. I'm a balance trainer. I focus mostly on pet dogs, family dogs, off-leash obedience, and I dabble a little bit in tracking and hunting dog work, but that's more on the side. So, but any questions on that I usually can answer as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.